Hi, my name is Mark Poirier. Um, what I'd like to talk about is my project. It's called the surrender equation. What it is essentially is it's the theory of oneness. Another name for it would be a unified or a universal field theory. So imagine taking all time and space, the entire universe, multiverse, and imagine collapsing it all down to one point and connecting it all. So it's a theory of oneness. The most important thing about a theory of oneness is that if you were to come up with a theory of oneness, there couldn't be you and your theory existing separately because that would equal two and your theory would fail. The only way a human being can come up with a theory of oneness or a unified field theory is that they became the theory. To do that, they would basically unify themselves or entangle themselves with the entire universe. So whether you're talking quantum entanglement or prophecy, that's essentially what would happen. The one thing I want to mention about oneness, I've grown up with a lot of hippie, new age, energy, yoga, Reiki masters, a lot of your kind of energy woo woo people, and they all have very strong opinions about oneness. In truth, the only thing you can know about oneness, the only opinion you can have about oneness is that you don't know anything about it. The eternal, the infinite, and the timeless cannot be quantified. They cannot be measured, counted, or quantified. So essentially, you can't really know anything about them. So to talk about them would be false. So the only thing to know is that the eternal, the infinite, and the timeless can only be expressed through oneness. Because once you have two-ness or duality, you can basically count, measure, and quantify. So this kind of relates to your quantum physics, where with your double slit experiment, they're firing particles or photons. When they're being measured, observed, or judged, they're a density. They can be measured, time and space. When they're not being quantified or observed, then they function as a wave, defy our laws of physics. Then that's basically touching on the eternal, infinite, timeless aspect. So whether you go by the Big Bang or God, whether it's science or religion, before the Big Bang, there was no time, space, it can't be defined. Another name for God is En Sof, which is nothingness without end. But imagine just religiously quickly, imagine in the beginning there's God. So going by that example, if you're not religious, you can see it metaphorically. In the beginning, there's this one energy, there's this one substance. We'll call it God, the will of God. When I say to people, what did God make everything out of? A lot of religious people say, oh, it's God, he can make it out of anything. There's no such thing as anything. There's no anything and there's no nothing. There's only God. There's only this one energy. So there's nothing else to make everything out of. So now imagine God creates the universe and he makes it out of himself. So all the planet, the stars, the sun, everything is basically made out of his energy, including you. Your whole physical anatomy, your feet, your toes, your knees, your hair, your ears, it's all made of this one energy. It's very interesting now with quantum physics saying with the double slit experiment, essentially every atom in the universe is conscious if it's being observed. Well, that's kind of funny because if God created everything and it's all him, then you can understand why it would all be conscious. I want you to consider quickly as if this was a dream. Imagine how I can have a dream. Well, if I'm capable of having a dream, then who's to say that the universe can't have a dream? So now imagine if this was all your dream or God's dream, it would all be one consciousness. Everything within that dream would exist as the person or the source of that dream. Okay, so God creates everything. It's all made out of him. That's me and you being born. And then we start moving through time. Now, I'm going to talk about time in a second. Imagine right now that this is the eternal now. So this is basically God. It would take you time to hear that. It would take you time to see that. And then it would take you time to react either emotionally or intellectually. So here's the eternal now, and there's you within your dimension of time. There's the now, and there's you. And that's basically the eternal splicing it. As we keep moving through life, we basically lose our relationship with the eternal, and we basically just get stuck within this relationship of time. It's interesting that the word individual, we see it as I'm an individual, you're an individual, and that makes us separate. But if you root out the word individual, it's indivisible. It means we can't be separated. And that's basically where we're getting to the point of oneness, where everything basically collapses and is connected to a singular point. Um, so this is interesting is when you look at the Big Bang Theory, it's saying that the universe was created like 13.8 billion years ago. Religion saying Adam and Eve is like 6 or 7 thousand years ago. So a little bit of a discrepancy. My point is, I'm not questioning the measurement in the 13.8 billion years. But if for 13 billion years nobody was around to quantify or measure it, how do you know that time existed? So how do you know that this was existing on the plane of time? And not that the measurement's not correct, but if time doesn't exist, it could have started at any point. The example being is if I have a dream, if I have a dream right now, it does not take 13.8 billion years for my dream to form. it forms instantaneously. We think that we're living in a material universe. We're not. We're living in a conscious universe, and out of consciousness comes the material. If this was my dream right now, it forms instantaneously. The whole world is here, table, chairs, the building, the sky, everything's here, including myself. If you're in my dream and other people are in my dream, you're not actually in my dream. You're coming from my mind, so you'd be a projection of my consciousness. If there's a bad guy in the dream, he's chasing me with an axe. There's no guy in the dream chasing me with an axe. It would be me basically chasing myself. The other thing to realize, though, is within my dream, within my consciousness, I've created solid matter. In my dream, I'd be sitting in a chair, there's a table, and where we think that out of material world comes consciousness, it's out of consciousness comes the material world. This is all a projection of our consciousness. If I'm capable as an individual of having a dream, I'm a product of the universe, then why can't the universe or God have a dream? So now if you imagine that this is all one dream, quantum physics saying that the whole universe is conscious, that makes sense because it would all be that one consciousness. The difference between your dream and, say, God's dream is that in your dream, you're the main character. You're also, as the main character, you're not aware in a normal dream without astral travel or lucid dreaming. You're not aware that you're me in the dream and that you're at the table and that you're the entire dream. And the very fact that you're sleeping and you exist outside of the dream. That's what oneness is. But you're only aware of yourself in first person as an individual, as separate. You're not aware of yourself as an individual, as an indivisible point. So basically the difference with God's dream is that the main character hasn't woken up yet. So on God's dream, it's all, he's basically everyone in the dream, every single person in the dream, he's created it all, which all makes sense. A character has to wake up. When that character wakes up and becomes aware that they're the dream, they're the beginning, the end, the alpha, the omega, the father, the son, or the mother and the daughter, then they would entangle themselves with that whole dream. So now imagine the world we live in is broken. I don't even have to get into that. I think we're all completely aware of that. Imagine one person shows up now to save the world. It's funny that even people that believe in this individual wouldn't accept it. So imagine that Jesus Christ shows up today and talks to a Christian and a Catholic, a priest, a teacher, say a government employee, the government of Canada, maybe he has a legal case. Every single one of those people are going to call the police. The police only option is to institutionalize, arrest, or to kill. So now here we are in Canada, and in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom, it says that we recognize the supremacy of God. When you think of all the children in Canada that have been mutilated, brainwashed, raped, and buried in the name of this story or prophecy, think of the significance of this. I've sat and talked to several cops for hours, and I'll tell you one conversation. I walked up to a cop. He was a Jesuit, which is a form of Catholicism or denomination of Catholicism, very strict. He actually believes in Jesus Christ, that he's coming and he's coming to save the world. So I look at the cop and I said, okay, you know Moses, Jesus, and Abraham. So Moses talked to the burning bush, Jesus talked to the devil at the edge of the cliff, and Abraham took his son up a hill with a knife to stab him because God told him so. So I say to the cop, I said, what if you see me talking to a bush right now? He started laughing. It was kind of interesting. He didn't kind of get offended or didn't step back. He actually engaged in the conversation. He's like, okay, this is interesting. He goes, I'd have to see how weird it is. And I'm like, okay, say it's really weird. Say I'm saying some really weird stuff. He's like, okay, well, I probably have to take you to get evaluated and to get looked at. I said, okay, I'm usually between 200 and 240 pounds. So what if I resist? And it was awesome. He didn't back off. He didn't take it aggressively. He was engaged in the conversation. So he went with it. And he's like, okay, that's interesting. He's like, I probably have to maybe call him back up. I said, you might have to use force. I said, possibly you might have to taser me, cuff me, and you'd be taking me to a hospital or a mental institution to be evaluated. He's like, yeah. I said, okay, the second example is what if you see me at the edge of a cliff? And I'm talking to myself. He said, now I would have to do something because of the cliff. There's imminent danger. But I said the same things basically apply. You'd, have to take me to be evaluated. If I resisted, if I wasn't making sense, causing problems, you might have to call him back up. You might have to use force. I could be tasered, cuffed, and be taken to a mental institution. I'd be held against my will, involuntarily incarcerated, and I could be getting medicated right now. Last example, heaven forbid, I said, imagine you see someone going up a hill with a kid and a knife saying they're going to stab him because God told them to. And he's like, obviously, I'm going to stop that person for sure. I said, so, imagine you only have one clean shot. You only have one opportunity. You have a clean headshot. That's your only chance. He's like, I'm going to take that shot to save the kid. Perfect. That makes sense. It's what I would do. I think it's what most people would do rationally. But I said to him, you're Jesuit. and I just introduced you to Moses, Jesus, and Abraham. I said, you just shot one of them in the head, you tasered the other two, you have them cuffed, and you've taken them to a mental institution where they're being medicated. It was funny because he kind of grabbed his head and he said, um, I never even thought about this. He said, we probably already killed him. He was talking about Jesus Christ. I made a joke then and he kind of weirded him out a little bit. I said, you haven't killed him yet. I said, it's me. I haven't told anyone yet. He kind of looked at me funny. But the point of the story is that nobody's ready. Even the people that are supposed to be ready, they're not. If Jesus Christ walked up to any single person today, they would reject him and they wouldn't believe him. The main reason for that is because if you can't see the truth within yourself, you're not going to see it within anyone else. But that's scary. You have somebody here who's coming to potentially save the entire world and all of humanity. Um, Again, countless children have been mutilated and brainwashed. Lives have been threatened in the name of this one prophecy. And who's ready for it? I think I'll leave it there for now.